November 20th, 1974. A Lufthansa Boeing 747 takes off from Nairobi and never climbs again. What caused one of aviation's deadliest tragedies? This is the story of Flight 540. On November 19th, 1974, at Frankfurt Airport in West Germany, the bustling terminals witnessed the departure of a long-haul Lufthansa flight, Flight 540. This Boeing 747-130, named Hessen, was bound for Johannesburg, South Africa, with a planned stopover in Nairobi, Kenya. The Boeing 747 was still a relatively new marvel, the queen of the skies. Known for its double-deck design and long-range capabilities, it represented a new era of commercial aviation. Flight 540 was operating with 139 passengers and 18 crew members on board.
Now connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake. Starting pushback, and you may start the engines.
That evening, the aircraft lifted off smoothly from Frankfurt. The first leg of the journey would take it over Europe, across the Mediterranean, and down the eastern coast of Africa, en route to Kenya's capital, Nairobi. As night deepened, Flight 540 soared peacefully at cruising altitude. Passengers dined, slept, and chatted, unaware that this flight would enter aviation history. Not for innovation or record-breaking, but for tragedy. By the early morning hours of November 20th, the aircraft descended into Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The stop was routine: refueling, crew changes, and preparation for the final leg to Johannesburg. On the tarmac, ground crews refueled the aircraft and checked systems. Meanwhile, a fresh crew boarded, experienced aviators ready for the short but important flight south. Inside the cabin, passengers settled in once again. Some disembarked briefly during the stop, while others stayed on board. The weather was warm, the skies clear. there was no sign of what was to come. Just before 7 a.m. local time, Flight 540 taxied to the runway. The aircraft was cleared for takeoff from runway 24. What should have been a routine departure would become the most tragic moment in Lufthansa's history. The 747 accelerated powerfully down the runway. Engines roared as the aircraft gained speed and lifted from the tarmac, climbing into the Nairobi morning. Moments after takeoff, something went terribly wrong. The aircraft began to vibrate. It failed to gain sufficient altitude. Witnesses later reported seeing it dip slightly to the right. At just under 200 feet, the aircraft stalled. Without the necessary lift, the giant 747 dipped nose first, striking the ground less than a mile from the runway. The aircraft broke apart on impact. A massive fireball engulfed the fuselage. The explosion and resulting fire consumed large parts of the plane within minutes. In the chaos, survivors scrambled to escape the wreckage. Thick black smoke filled the cabin as flames tore through the aircraft. Emergency slides deployed, but time was cruelly short. Nairobi's emergency teams rushed to the scene. Firefighters battled the inferno while medics tended to the injured. Survivors were rushed to nearby hospitals, but for many, help came too late. Of the 157 people on board, 59 lives were lost, 55 passengers and 4 crew members. The crash marked the first ever fatal accident involving a Boeing 747 and remains Lufthansa's deadliest crash to this day. As smoke still rose from the wreckage, international investigators arrived. The question loomed: how could a state-of-the-art aircraft crash just seconds after takeoff on a clear morning? The investigation revealed a chilling oversight. The leading-edge slats, critical components that provide lift during takeoff, had not deployed. The aircraft had taken off in a configuration that left it vulnerable to a stall. The slats were left retracted because of a failure in the aircraft's pneumatic system, and crucially, the flight crew had not noticed. Without slats, the 747 struggled to generate lift at low speed, a recipe for disaster. The crash of Lufthansa Flight 540 led to sweeping changes in aviation procedures. Checklist protocols were revised. Mechanical indicators were improved. Safety became more than priority. It became obsession. Today, The site of the crash remains etched in memory. For the families of those who died, the grief remains. For aviation, it was a harsh lesson learned in blood. A reminder that even giants must respect the laws of the skies.